Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Let's Talk with Vanner Weber, who's on my right, and me, Joe Emilia. We are continuing our conversation from last week, which was hashtag I am the we. What is we? Who is the we?
Mm,
Well, the we is for
mm,
some South Africans. Well, actually, no, it's for all South Africans. That's what we defined it. We defined the we as all South Africans. There's no specific class or gender or race. We stands for all South Africans, no matter who you are. Now, we're continuing this conversation, and we basically left off last week talking about how the media has warped our perceptions, and we think that this is a very interesting topic. So, I think what I should maybe try and do first is talk about what has happened recently to try and drive this point across. At the moment, as we all know, we are affected by the virus COVID-19. Everyone's on lockdown. There's talks that some of the areas in South Africa might be go to level 3. Some might stay on level 4. Now, in this current time, I think that a lot of people just want to hear facts. They don't want to hear these weird stories that keep on coming up. And the media seems hell bent on making us talk about race and privilege and all these other things that come up. And here's a very good example, which I'm going to put on the screen now for you guys. It is an example of, I can't pronounce the name, Karen, Venner called her Karen Moron, which I kind of agree with.
No, I didn't. It was a slip of the tongue. I did not call him on. I said Moghon, 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 and because I personally couldn't pronounce it. So do not. You are being fake news. You are being fake news. You're putting words in my mouth. You sure you're fake news. So no, yeah, but maybe she is. I don't know. I don't know the lady. I've heard the backstory. Yeah, and I've sort of seen the interview who was it that did I think it was Germ
Yes,
did an interview with this particular lady as well. Well, not the journalist, the one who the
the
Facebook
judge,
post pertains to. Yeah.
Judge
Well, she's not a
Gillian.
judge. I mean, if you watch, she was an acting judge or a something of sorts, but she's not even working right now. So she's just a mom, right? She's just an advocate. She's a
Yeah,
legal eagle and a human being.
yeah,
So
exactly.
over to you, over to
Um,
Karen Mahon.
so she put out a tweet not too long ago about this story. Now, here's an example of how the media likes to twist things. She says here in the headline, it says acting judge steps down after lashing government over lockdown, and then she still defends it by tweeting afterwards. Former acting judge Gillian Benson remains adamant she will not apologize for a recent deleted Facebook post. F you,
Mm,
South Africa. F you. And here's the thing, guys. When you watch the interview with Jerem and stuff, she actually explains that she was number one, she was a former judge, and number two, we're being, this is, I think, what a lot of people feel that the media is doing. When you have an opinion, when you are angry with
mm,
the government, like if your opinion is angry with the government, people come down on you hard.
mm.
Look at what happened with Gareth when he gave the Gareth
How
Cliff.
dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you?
how dare you write a
How
letter?
dare you?
How dare you write a
That was
letter?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and asking
I
who's the
mean I
we.
mean I mean I'm trying to do my best Greta here, but I mean obviously I don't have a ponytail.
So
Dare you?
how dare you? And that's the thing. Like, why are we fighting about this stuff? These
Mm,
citizens have genuine concerns. Okay, so the Judge
mm,
Gillian, or ex former Judge Gillian, she was just venting on her personal Facebook page. That's it. She was just venting. She was
mm.
angry. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're
Yeah.
entitled to free speech. So where does the line? Where's the
Yeah.
line? Where's the line now? We can't even vent anymore. We can't, like, we'll probably get lots of flack
Yeah.
for doing this. But someone will be like, "Oh, look at these
Yeah,
two."
but here's the thing is I think maybe because it's a judge, there's this idea, there's this thing is I mean as sober as a judge, and they should be sober minded and they should be impartial and all that kind of stuff. So we put these people on a pedestal and we forget at the end of the day they're just human,
Yeah,
right? Um, I, that is simply it. You can, and if you cannot make that connection in your head that you can have separate personas. You can have professional persona, which you show to the business world, to your audiences, because that is what your job entails. It requires you to act like that, you know. So I mean, how many people do you know that maybe work like on a shop floor as like a sales assistant or something like that, you know, and they're all neat and tidy, but on the weekend they're like a death metal freaking bassist, you know, and
Exactly.
you know. So does it make them a bad sales, you know, person? No, you know, you people, you can have two faces, you know, one that you kind of show to your friends and family and like the crazy side, and the other side is your professional answers. And even in your professional capacity, right? You know, she's a judge. She works arguably for the state. Um, you know, as an employee, I think you're entitled to kind of criticize your boss. You know, do you then stand the chance of kind of losing your job? Of course, you know, it does kind of come with the territory. But um, how does that speak about the boss, though? You know, I would say, you know, if if we were to have faith in the judiciary, you know, then they should have kind of gone, maybe have had a, you know, chat to her, say, okay, cool, you know, maybe set your settings to private and refuse to speak to the Englishes. We understand that you've got your own private life, etc., etc. But to fire her and all that kind of stuff, that just shows that you are being petty, that you don't actually, you know, that you can't separate that state from personal, you know, personal freedoms and liberties. You know,
Yeah.
we have the right to freedom of speech. So surely she should be protected under that same constitutional right, under the freedom of speech. You know, she wasn't inciting hatred or inciting, it
No.
wasn't hate speech, it wasn't, she just, you know,
She was just venting.
even the words, you know, yeah, she's just venting, you know, and I mean, I vent all the time, you know, and people, you know, say, you know, I'm a privileged this, I'm a privileged that, and they don't know me, you know, they just literally don't know me, and
Yeah.
it's almost like the moment that you have an opinion that is not of that of others, the ability, it seems, to debate falls apart,
Mm.
you know. And you know, I've seen this before, you know, having gone through the cannabis legalization. You know, I started sharing articles and, you know, talking about legalization probably around 8, 10 years ago. You know, I kind of changed my whole stance in it, and I was happy to accept that I was wrong about it. And back then, people called me nuts and they called me crazy, and, you know, I would engage in debates and all this kind of stuff. And now today, we're in a world where most people are pro, you know, and it's, you know, now doctors are pro this, and it's those same people that were your, almost what I would consider your detractors.
Yeah.
There comes a time when they will acknowledge, you know, and hopefully we will get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this whole judge thing, like it was just again, it's I just she then like the journalist then goes and says like, oh, she's been victimized now because obviously the truth came out. The truth came out that this judge didn't, because she made it sound like the judge went on this wild tyrant, you know, tirade
Mm,
and like insulted everyone
mm,
left, right, and center. Well, while
mm.
that wasn't the case, and once the truth came out, once people found out like, oh, she was just venting, now the journalist is like, oh, but
Yeah,
I was reporting and I'm now
she's
being,
getting grief.
yeah, like, and she's acting
Yeah,
like the victim.
and that's not gonna fly.
No,
Yeah, and that won't fly anymore.
yeah, exactly. And then we have another story which happened today, which I'll bring up as well. Now I don't have the original tweet. There was a woman named Bianca who said that she wants to run for or participate in the Miss South Africa beauty pageant, and Black Twitter just went absolutely insane. Partially because, or if not because, apparently they dug up an old tweet of hers, very old. We're talking back in the day when she was a teenager, and she had made an insensitive joke at the time using the N word, and that
Mm,
sparked some hatred. Now there's been the hashtag Bianca must fall, and there's some really ugly things. This is what I don't understand as well, Venner. This is what I don't understand.
mm,
People accuse you of being racist. They'll say like you're a racist or whatever. But then they'll fight you
mm.
by being racist. I mean, listen to this. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Miss Orania, 2020, Bianca Shumbi. Qualifications Bachelor of Art in Racism, PhD in Body Shaming. Bianca must fall. Hashtag Bianca must fall. There's other, we can see here, Bianca must fall has, at the time that I took this snap scan, it had 36.9K tweets, which is what made it trending. And we have things like this: the person who dug up Bianca's tweets knows her very well, can't be a stranger. The person knows Bianca is a racist. Bianca must fall. And there's other things. Let me see. Let me just find it. I think that could be it for now. Yeah, that is it for now. But it seems like people just want to. The answer to fighting racism is racism, and I think that's a very toxic thing to do. What's your opinion on that?
Look, I obviously don't know the details of the specific case, so I'm not necessarily going to comment on that. But what I would say is, I definitely think, it's this. We're seeing the boy who cried wolf. If you can use that analogy. Once you start calling everything racist, nothing is racist.
Yeah,
And it now may
good point.
seem like that's that you may be deflecting on people's racism, and is there systemic racism and is there subtle racism? And look, there's racism, period. It's there. People are racist. It happens across all colors, across all walks of life. Do some people do it intentionally? Do they do it, harmfully? How many times have you been called a honky or this or that? And you kind of just take it on the chin, because it's, it comes from your mate or something like that. So it's in those senses, I'd say if you're okay with it and your friends are okay with it, it's between you and your social bond between your friends, right?
Yeah.
But often those kind of things get taken out of context when these, and I don't say it's in this particular case, but in many instances, I think there's this outrage mentality these days. There's this
Absolutely.
constant, let's look for the next victim. Let's can we just collectively go, where's the one that we can rat out? Who's the person that we can call out, just so that we can all just go, we feel so good, we've done our bit. We've done our bit for society. Yay us, we've stamped out racism in the world. But have we really affected the world? No. We've just caused more divide, we've just caused more hurt. We've just so how do we bridge these things? And it's because, let's also face it, South Africa is a complex country, right? It's to call it anything other than that is it's being ignorant to its history, and it's not being truthful, right? So we accept that injustices were done. We accept we need to rectify certain things, right? We're not blind to that, and this is what I'm trying to say. There are many of us, people like me, we're not blind to that. We acknowledge that we need to fix the country, and the only way to do that is to alleviate poverty, and alleviate poverty through education and good quality systems, and there's because South Africa is a beautiful country. It's a resource-rich nation. We have got everything going for us, right? So why aren't we a success? Because it is deliberate.
Yeah.
We are deliberately being divided by religion. We are deliberately being divided by race. We are deliberately being divided by class, by all kinds of things, right? And there will always be differences, in race and gender and all these. There are so many ways that you can slice society, right? And I can guarantee you, with 7 billion plus people, we will have differences. So we need to accept that divide is being manufactured, and we need to get over it somehow. I don't necessarily have the answer, but yeah, I agree. I mean, the media is definitely complicit in manufacturing this outrage.
Exactly. I mean, Roman Kabanek said it best, I think, in one of his tweets. He said, South Africans expect more from beauty queens than politician leaders. Beauty queen makes slightly insensitive joke as a teen, gets cancelled. A politician said that a raped woman enjoyed it because she asked for taxi money and gets 10% of the vote. The politician gets 10% of the vote. I mean, you can't. I think our moral compass has definitely been shifted, as you mentioned, and we are divided. I do have another question here from Storm Legacy. Storm Legacy, thank you so much for tuning in again. Good to see you again. Do you believe that when a contract is signed with an organization, your entire existence is linked to it? Therefore, your representation is 24/7. Yes and no. It depends on, and this is my opinion. Yes and no. It depends on
Mm.
the company that you are associated
Organization.
with or
Mm.
organization that you are associated with.
Mm.
In some cases, yes, you do have to be careful with what you say and do. For example, military constantly has to be, careful of what they say, not just because of personal
Mm.
views, but also because there's classified information that they can't accidentally leak,
Mm.
which will be viewed as treason. Um, and then there's
Mm.
also, like, even in the comedy industry, I think that a lot of comedians aren't being honest with their views because they're scared of losing a contract or they're scared of losing a client. They're scared that if
Mm.
their true
Mm.
opinion comes out, that a client might be like, "Oh, I don't like that you
Mm.
said that," and they might be like, "Look, we can't work
Mm.
with you." And we've seen it. We've seen it before. Venya, what do you think?
Yeah. Man, I almost think this speaks to a deeper rooted problem with most people is authenticity.
Mm,
Is just being truthful, being honest, being honest about who you are and what you represent and what you're about. I'm not. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of people disagree with me on many different things, and I'm okay with that. I don't expect people to agree with me. I don't expect, when I went on the whole cannabis crusade and did my bit of social justice worrying. It was for me it was about personal liberty and personal freedoms. I could look someone in the eye and say, look, I acknowledge that you may not agree with me that this is a conducive or non-conducive substance for whatever the case may be, but I want you to at least acknowledge that in me using this, I'm not harming anyone else aside from me.
yeah.
So as long as my actions does not hurt anyone else, then I should be allowed to be my authentic self. Now, obviously, if my authentic self is someone that likes to hack people apart, I shouldn't be allowed to be my authentic self because that's not really a cool authentic self that we want to unleash onto the public. So there's that's why I say, there's common law, natural law. Most people understand intrinsically between what's right and wrong. And so um,
Well,
I
I think also
I
what
think
makes it
if we are yeah,
sorry, I think what also makes
sorry,
it difficult
carry
is
on.
these social justice warriors. They keep some people from being authentic, because they're so
Mm.
self righteous in the way they do things. They accuse one of being racist, but in doing so are being racist themselves. Like I
Mm.
said, they'll fight the same thing. They'll accuse you of white privilege. They'll accuse you of apartheid apologists. They'll accuse you of anything that goes against the narrative.
Mm.
Basically, they act like, oh, we are better because we understand our past and we are
Mm.
not racist.
Mm.
So we are entitled to say that you're racist because you can't see it because of your white privilege. So they automatically put you in a box
Mm.
like that through their ideologies
Mm.
and false beliefs, if I can put it that way, because it's all garbage to me. It's like
It's a perception.
it's a
It's just perceptions. That's
it
all. It's a
yeah, it could be
perception created by somebody else.
exactly.
It's that
Um,
simple.
it's now there's this whole debate of right, who's more wrong, and all that stuff. I think again it goes back to just we do have to look at our history. I don't disagree with that. We definitely have to look at our history, but we need to learn from our history, not use it as a weapon. And that's what
Mm.
these socialists kind of do. They use it
Mm.
as a weapon to make you feel
Mm.
like, well, if you think this way, or if you do this thing, or if you say that, then you're wrong, you're evil, you're a terrible person. Then people don't want to be authentic anymore. People are scared to say how they
Mm.
really feel, and maybe that's why some
Mm.
people are actually a lot complicit in this lockdown. We have a lot of that in South Africa where people will, you and I, for example,
Like mm,
you and
yeah,
I, for
I'm personally of the opinion, yeah. I'm personally of the opinion that I think authenticity and this truthfulness, is going to become more mainstream, and um, there comes a tipping point. There's certain scientific experiments, this thing called the 100th monkey, and it shows that when any group of people, once there's more than 10% of a population or a certain group of people that act in a particular way, that is enough to start the chain reaction for almost like a 90% to 100% adoption. It's then
interesting.
just a matter of time.
Mm.
It's just a matter of time. I think we are beyond that 10% tipping point already. So I think that's why you're seeing way more people speaking up, not being afraid to make what would be considered a insensitive meme, sharing an insensitive meme, because you know what, screw it. I'm now done with being politically correct, because I think a lot of it stems from frustration, not being able to just say something, just getting it off your chest. I mean, I'll take sometimes. My wife and I will have a, call it arguments. We don't really argue per se. We have
Discussion.
civil discussion. And yeah, no, we do. We absolutely. It takes practice to get to that point.
Mm.
But you make sure that you understand that sometimes you will say something which you don't necessarily mean in that specific point in time, but it just comes from a place of frustration or anger or whatever the case is, and you feel okay with that person to express it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes these things happen, and we're so afraid of just being real that everyone just kind of just says, okay, yeah, I'm gonna say what's today's headline. Okay, yeah, we're saying this now. Let's just, okay, what's that tweet saying? Okay, let's just say that, because that is way easier than going against that stream.
Yeah.
Because now you have to go and you have to debate and you have to engage and you have to discuss, and it gets tiring. Because you can come with facts and figures, and then you just, and then an ad hominem attack come, and then you just know, okay, well, there's no point debating.
Yeah.
Just walk away.
No, I agree with you 100%, and we've seen that with journalists where, that one ENCA, they actually reported on truth. They called it out for what it was. They said Ramaphosa has been demasculated, and that NDZ is calling the shots, and what's going on here, questioning, creating provoking thoughts here. And lo and behold, right after it was done, they were suspended, and that footage was taken down. Now you can only find it because somebody had recorded it. Luckily, they recorded it right after, and there's still evidence.
It's censorship.
Yeah, it's censorship, and that's not a democracy. That is democracy is freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of your gatherings. Like you can what's it? Not cult-like, but just you can get together.
Freedom
with
of association.
Yes, freedom of association.
Yeah, freedom of association.
All those things, which have all been taken away from us now under the banner of COVID, which, again, debatable. That's a whole other debate. But people need to realize that this is what John Steenhuisen was trying to say: is the lockdown wasn't a bad idea. The lockdown was a good idea. It was good that we did it quick, and I agree with him. I say, yeah, it was great that we started early. It was strict to get control and to buy us time to prepare our hospitals, to get extra beds, to deal with what is going to happen. And we're seeing it now. That it's going up. It's going up because we haven't peaked yet. We haven't peaked, and we're not doing enough tests. And these are all facts, guys. You can go and Google it. I'm not spreading fake news here. John Steenhuisen was on an excellent interview with Ramon, saying that their whole argument isn't that they want to just end the lockdown. No, we need to protect the economy, because at this moment in time, if we're losing 13 billion rand a day under this lockdown, and if we don't,
I think it was something like 16.6.
Yeah, it's probably gone up now.
I read something like 16. Yeah.
And it's going to be more devastating in the long term. So we might not see it now. I mean, there are people that are starving and suffering, but the long-term effects of this are going to hit us really, really hard, and we need to start thinking about this. As I stated before in the previous episode, I'm not asking or saying that tomorrow we need to just go out and do our own thing. That's not all what I'm saying. I'm just saying there has to be another option, and that's also what John Steenhuisen is saying. So I think at this current time, the media is just trying so hard to keep us debating each other while there's this definitely a power thing happening. And speaking of which, Storm has given us a good question here, or maybe it's a bit of a statement. It's odd that political parties have a general slogan of "Let's make SA better together," when at the same time pointing out what the belief what I think what he meant was what they believe the ANC does wrong. Yeah, that's true. Again, it's for a specific target market that they say that.
Yeah.
I think.
Look, South Africa is a nation of divisional politics.
It is
It's
identity politics.
There are very few. There are very yeah. It's identity politics. There are very few parties that can truly say they are non. You know, they don't specialize in some kind of a specific subgroup or genre. And I think I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I think a lot of these people are just grifters. They don't have any real intent to make any real tangible change. A lot of them are career politicians. They just, flip flop from one party to the other party. Make sure that they keep the votes. It's a sweet salary. It's a sweet gig.
Yeah,
I mean,
some
I'm
of
not
them earn
gonna.
like
I'm
2
not
million
gonna.
a year.
I'm not gonna. Yeah. And look, I need to work really hard. I need to work really hard to get kind of close to those kind of numbers what some of these guys earn, right? And I mean, I employ people, I pay tax, I need, so it's I I think often you have narcissists, you have people with these feelings of that they can somehow make decisions on people's behalf. They are drawn to those positions of power. And those are generally the worst kind of people to have in positions of power because they generally act in their own self-interest. So, I mean, it's to my mind, it's quite disgusting that they would kind of give themselves a pat on the back for saying that they'll take in what's something like a third cut in their salary.
Ridiculous.
A third cut in their salary.
It's nothing.
Like while there's people that are sitting with nothing for weeks.
And you must still pay taxes. You must still pay. You're not working, but you must still pay taxes.
Yeah. So I find that anyone that still has a modicum of respect for a lot of these people, I find that quite alarming. Because if you think of just the sheer arrogance of some of these folk that have been there for years, right? And they sit there and they have these debates and they call each other honorable member. It's like just talking about it makes me a little bit sick, to be perfectly honest. So
Good.
I do not believe most of them are fit for office.
No,
I don't think most of them are fit for office.
Dude, we have a minister that said before you get into a taxi, you must sit down. We have a minister that said we have 10 provinces. These guys are not fit for where they are in places of power. We have someone in SARS who can't fucking spell IT. Sorry.
And it's got nothing to do with race or color here. It's got literally to do with your ability to do the fucking job that we appointed you to do, because you are a civil, and listen to the word, a civil servant. You're doing it for the sake of the people. You are being a servant of the people. Therefore, you must serve the people.
But now
the fact that we are arguably serfs to these overlords, I mean, that can say to us what kind of shoe you may buy. And we just go, oh, thank you so very much that I may now buy a shoe.
Well, look what they did last week with the economic thing. DA gives a fantastic speech, and then some people think it's not fantastic, but that's it's perception. But DA gives a speech, and then all of a sudden the e-commerce is allowed. They're just giving a carrot to the people because they knew that John Steenhuisen made some very good points in his speech, and now they're like, oh crap, we're going to lose some voters, so let's give them a carrot.
Of course.
And before we go on, I really want to talk about this question because it's a good question. It's from Mr. Fasan. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mr. Fasan. And by the way, guys, I am seeing your questions. Keep them coming in, and we will get to them in time. So this one says, is it right for our free generation post 1994 to harbor such strong racial beliefs against each other? Have we failed ourselves in the reconciliation process? I'll go first on that. I think so. I think we have. We have failed ourselves tremendously. I think the age of woke, which is just the new extreme liberals, the same ones that back in the 70s were hippies and stuff like that, a very extreme version of that, and claim to be woke and self-righteous and all that. I think the socialists as well have poisoned a lot of our minds. And I was pretty much in that camp sort of for a time until I started to open my eyes a bit and realize what was going on, and get the red pill, so to speak. So yes, I think I can't look. I wasn't around in South Africa post '94, so I can't speak about that time. But your second part of the question: have we failed ourselves in the reconciliation process? Absolutely. It's sad to see how racism is used as a weapon in this country. You know, BEE, look at that. You know, BEE was supposed to be something, it's changed over the years. Google, it's changed. Every year there's a new amendment to it. Every year it's getting tighter on its regulations, which are actually excluding some of the people in South Africa, or a class or a race, whatever you want to call it. They are excluding certain groups of people, and that is racist. When you exclude certain groups of people because of the color of the skin, literally because of the color of the skin. And BE isn't what it used to be. And again, it's all that manipulation and moving people here and there. And yeah, that's my opinion. What do you think, Banner? Sorry.
So there's a couple of things. The is it right for people post '94 to harbor such hate toward each other? You know, and I lived in South Africa. You know, I'm 42 years old. Pre '94. Yeah, I was a high school kid. You know, when the whole transition happened. And for a lot of us as young kids, we didn't really understand racism. We didn't really get it. Like, it wasn't something that you understood. It wasn't something that we lived in a small little Free State town for a while, and I had little black friends, because those were the only kids, those were the only other kids around, and we would just run around, and we had little cars, that we'd push around in the field. It was like a kid's dream, but you didn't really understand these concepts, So when, for me, when the whole transition happened, it was sort of like, okay, so now we can kind of all live in the same neighborhood. That was sort of like the biggest thing for me. We didn't really understood a lot of the other, conditions and stuff that kind of came with. That was only sort of after the fact you kind of learned how people were restricted from movement, and a lot of things that didn't necessarily, to me as an adult, make sense. So and therefore I realized that there is redress and we need to fix the past, but I also know that there is a certain way that we need to approach this. And I think for a lot of us, I think most South Africans don't hate each other. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I often go into the townships. When we go drop some stuff off, or we go pick up some folks, or whatever, and we go into the houses. We have a chat, we chill out. There's no animosity. We get kids come say how's it. We hang out, talk. There's none of this, like, I go in and like I fear for my life, because now I'm this whitey in like a black township area. It doesn't faze me. I don't. I obviously, the abject poverty gets to me. It's horrible to see good people. Most of these people are just good people.
Yeah.
They want a decent job. They want to have their kids go to a decent school. They want to have their kids have slightly better than they had, because building wealth is a generational thing. Like, we didn't grow up rich. We were quite poor. I kind of had to work my way through being a waiter, buying my own computer, buying my own books, So there's, it's things that you have to kind of go through, and there's generational mindset changes that has to happen. And I often use this analogy. If you've been denied access to the candy store for most of your life, and now all of a sudden you have access to the candy store, what are you going to do?
You're gonna go crazy.
You're absolutely going to gorge yourself. Yeah, you're going to gorge yourself. You're going to go absolutely freaking nuts, because you're going to think, oh my God, and I think this is what we're happening. And it's going to take a generation or two for that mentality to kind of sort of die. I'm gonna call it a spade. Because it's a lot of the older, people that now feel they are justified in doing what they're doing. This mass grab of wealth because it's my turn. It's my turn to put my hand in the jar and just take.
Well, on that,
So,
if I can just interject very quickly, there's a
yeah,
very good point that you give up.
absolutely.
This whole wealth thing, that they're entitled to this wealth. I've been doing some research on this whole white monopoly capital, which that term only started after state capture with the whole Zuma and Gupta thing, and it what I find that South Africans don't understand, or a lot of the ones that believe in socialism and are woke, they don't know, because they're the ones that will say white monopoly capital and white privilege and all that stuff. They don't understand that the economy at the moment is open for everyone, like everyone. BEE and those things are what keep the elite rich and richer, because they only offer jobs to the ones that they know. It's very difficult to get into that category of government tenders and stuff like that. Some do, obviously, but it's mainly the African or the black population. Then the other thing is this whole thing about, like, yeah, because I hear this a lot from them, like, yeah, but this system is for the white man, and you're benefiting from the system, and you have a job and blah blah blah. And the thing is, it's like, you could get a job too, though. You can earn your own wealth. I wasn't given or born into a job. I wasn't. I also, like, I still, like, right now I'm unemployed because of COVID, because of what's happening now. I don't have a stage. I have nothing. I do a bit of freelance graphic design here and there, but I don't have wealth. I don't know where this idea that a certain class of people just are born into it. Yes, of course. If my parents had bought a
There
house.
are a tiny amount of people. There are a tiny amount of people that have true wealth. True wealth.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm talking multiples of millions,
And these are the
right? Because
people
if
that
you
are in the
take,
government,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
their friends that rub shoulders with the government people. So, like, for example, what's that guy now that was been brought into? He was brought up because of NDZ and the cigarettes. I forgot his name, Mazzotti or something like that. Um, he's
Oh, oh,
um, yeah, you know who I'm talking about. He's very wealthy.
yeah, the illegal cigarette trader. Correct.
Yes, he's very wealthy. Of course, he's very wealthy, but he's a white man and he's rubbing shoulders with NDZ because what? He's a criminal. Really, he's admitted that in an affidavit, and those are the people that will benefit off of other people saying, like, no, you're the problem. They're trying to get us to fight one another. Anybody in this economy can work, can earn a living, can do great things. A very good example in our industry is Trevor Noah. He worked his butt off, and now he's in one of the biggest talk shows in America, earning millions. Did he use his race to his advantage? Maybe. But at the same time, he worked. He used the system. He worked hard. He grew, and there's a lot of success stories in our world. We just don't hear about it. And the moment
I'm
that
just
you
I'm just gonna say you should maybe speak to some of the other comics. There's some comics that may have some fire comments, shall we say, about Mr. Trevor,
Yeah, I know
and
he's
his
not
and
he's
his
not
and his
very.
ethical behavior. I
Yes,
mean, I'm
yes,
sure you've heard some of
I've
the
heard.
rumors as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, so
That's
I
a
mean,
topic for
whether they
another
are
day.
they are true, maybe it's professional jealousy. I don't know,
I think it's
but
a mix of both, but that's the thing. See, professional jealousy, I think that's the same for when people call you or say that you're benefiting from the system because it was designed to benefit you and not me. You're jealous. You're jealous that you don't have. Gareth Cliff said it best. The social justice warriors, they don't have a place in the economic system, so they blame other people for their
they don't.
inadequacies. It's as simple as that. But anyway, I can go on a whole
Mm.
rant on that. I just also want to bring up this guy, Cloud Sounds. Thank you, Cloud Sounds, for tuning in again. I really appreciate it. Why is our land reform scripted by NGOs? These politicians don't represent the citizens. They do the bidding of their overlords. Look how quickly the globe is shut down by the WHO. Yes, the Wuhan Health Organization.
Mm.
Um, why is our land reform scripted
Uh,
by NGOs? I'll let you handle that
Well,
one.
I think, yeah, I think always it's quite simple. There's the age-old saying that says follow the money.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think once you start looking at who funds most of these NGOs, you'll start seeing a clear pattern, right?
Yes.
Now, it takes time. You have to go do your own homework to kind of see. I obviously, for sake of not wanting to go into litigation or any kind of legal things, I'm not gonna mention people by name and companies and organizations, but you'll see it's generally funded by the same group of companies. There's about 4 or 5 major funders for a lot of these NGOs that do what we would call consultative input into land reform programs and so on. And you'll find that a lot of these things are generally written in such a way that the land reform programs will work that none of the citizens will ever actually own land, right?
No.
And most of your arable land will go to big agricultural businesses to farm on behalf of the company or of the citizens, right? And the citizens will get a share of it, So it's like an administration. But what's really happening is they're taking the land from private ownership and basically renting it out to massive industry.
Yep.
And South Africa is arguably a gold mine. Yeah, we have centuries of farming skills. We have some of the best farming lands in the world. We have some of the best export fruits. We have Zimbabwe just north of us. So South Africa is really the gateway into Africa, right? That's why we've seen the Chinese make such insane business deals with many African countries. A lot of them starting to kind of wake up now and sort of tightening the screws on these loans. Unfortunately, our country is just getting chummier and chummier with them. And you know what? I think South Africans don't want to see the writing on the wall because they never thought it would be able to happen to them, but they need to kind of see the writings on the wall.
I think that's because back in the day that when Nelson Mandela was becoming president and fighting and for equality and all that stuff. I think a lot of us want to believe that that is the same South Africa that we have today, when it's clearly not. They want to believe that the ideologies that Nelson had at the time, which is equality for all and we're all going to benefit off the land and blah blah blah. Again, they wish that was still the case. That is the South Africa. That is the Rainbow Nation. And we have to start opening our eyes. We have to start seeing that these governments or these people that are in government they're not looking out for the people. They are not. They're looking out for their own selves. And it's evident in the things that Cyril says. If you listen very carefully to his speech, there are little words that you can pick up that he says, and I don't know if he's saying them intently, but he's saying them. Like he used a term in his last speech, which I caught, and I was like, why are you saying that? It's a term when you refer to citizens. It's another word for citizens, but it doesn't mean citizens. It means almost like subjects. You know how a king would talk to his loyal subjects. It's another word for when a king speaks to his people. And he used that term, and I'm like,
his loyal serfs.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, why? He didn't say citizens, that I know. And I'm like, why did you say that word? That's an interesting word to use in your speech. But yeah, I just want to also, Mr. Fasson has another question. Funny you should talk about BEE. What about the current relief fund? The pandemic does not have any prejudices, yet the fund is being used to push that agenda. Exactly. I don't think that was really a question. But
abhorrent.
Yeah, it is what abhorrent. It is.
Yeah, but we agree. Yeah, no, I agree. It's absolutely disgusting. It's called a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Yes, we can acknowledge that the majority of the poor in this country are Black people. That's a fact. Because
the majority
just by sheer numbers, it's absolutely. But it doesn't mean there aren't people of other colors. Indian colors. White people, that are also suffering. And I think the fact that the government has try to put an absolute monopoly on even the handing out of food,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
the charity. Yeah.
that is morally degenerate. It is a degeneracy of the highest order. And like their rationale is non-existent. And we've seen even articles on News 24. That have that now coming out. That's now coming out. That shows a lot of the doctors, the scientists are all asking exactly the same question. Give us the data, give us the access to the data, because they do not believe the statistics. So I think our country is being bled dry. Specifically, our small businesses are being killed, and we're basically equaling the playing field. And instead of building up a nation, we're just making everybody equally poor,
Yeah,
right?
well, this falls
And
into
I think,
the, sorry, this falls into the ideologies of socialism. Make your people dependent on the
yeah,
government. Simple.
yeah, yeah. Now there's some industries that are going to have a hard time doing that with, like the tech industry. People like myself. Um, for us, business as usual. It's really, we can make our money overseas. We can work from here as long as we've got good internet. It's so for me, really, my life has been untouched. But I'm being one of the loudest voices against this thing, because it's it's going to lead to such a humanitarian crisis. Once we start going into winter, once we start getting the true snap of cold, people that are malnourished, not well fed, and I'm talking people from all walks of life. So even though the ANC has said no, we're not going to give any of the relief fund, if you don't meet the various BEE requirements and all these kind of things, then we're going to see some people take serious strain, and it's going to be the poor. It's going to be the poor, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The middle class is going to get shoved, run down, or like a few notches down, and your rich will become richer.
Yeah.
And it's just, and your super rich is just going to become filthy, stinking rich,
Yeah.
because they are the ones who are going to have the big agreements with agro businesses and so on.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I hope that people will see this. But again, the government's doing such a good job at, well, okay, not good job, but they're keeping hope alive. For the Karens and the socialists and stuff like that, because they do that thing where they're like, okay, we might move to level 3. Okay, here we're gonna give you e-commerce. Okay, here like I firmly believe that they are holding on to the alcohol and cigarette ban. That's like their ace in the hole for when they feel that they're going to lose complete control. Like when people are going to get to that moment of like revolt, well, not revolution, but just revolt in a way. That's when they'll be like, okay. Here's your cigarettes. Here's your alcohol. Be calm. Like I really think they're holding on to that for a reason.
Yeah.
Let's see here. There's some questions coming in again. Okay, here's one from Storm Legacy. Do you believe that wealthy business owners have leverage to influence government decision? Yes. If you are extremely wealthy, then yes. We've seen it. A very good example is, again, go watch on Showmax. What's it called again? What's that documentary now on Showmax about the Gupta and Zuma? How to Steal a Nation. How to Steal a Nation on Showmax. I watched it. Very good, and you can see right there how wealthy people can influence even the most prolific, not prolific, but the politicians and stuff like that. It's a very good documentary.
Money buys.
Money buys.
It's that simple. There's currently in the news. There's a big thing in the news cycle with Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, with the whole Burisma holding. They're now being subpoenaed. They've been subpoenaed to appear in front of Senate for an interview or for investigation. And what that shows clearly is and it happens all over the world, is that when you put people in power, these are generally career politicians. Joe Biden's been in there for 30 years, 30 odd some years, right? What has he changed? Not a single damn thing, and he was clearly grifting, clearly guilty of grifting. You can hear him talking to Poroshenko, right? It's totally him. Him and John Kerry involved. So you have high level US statespeople involved in this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what are the odds that South Africa, with one of the highest, rated one of the highest corrupt rated SAPs in the world, rated one of the highest corrupt governments in the world, do you honestly think they're not going to be grifting?
Exactly. And we're known for it. I mean,
You
unfortunately,
know, I yeah.
it's not a
So and it's
cool
and
thing.
it's kind of accepted,
Mm.
and that's just I find that just abhorrent, and that most people don't even they kind of pretend that it doesn't happen. But
There's
there's a lot of deals. Yeah, there's a lot of deals that are made, and that's how these guys become filthy rich.
From what I noticed with South Africans that I've interacted with, there seems to be this. I don't know. It's not that they don't get angry, but I feel like we were discussing earlier, that South Africans don't want to look at the truth. They don't want to see it. They want to believe that South Africa is all great and it's still the Nelson Mandela days of new
Yeah.
nation, new rainbow. Because if you look at it this way, I mean, if you look at the voting not polls, the voting statistics. Google, you'll find it, of last election. 10%. 10% of the people voted of over
Mm,
60 million population.
mm,
And that tells the
yeah.
story right there that South Africans don't believe in their own government anymore. They just don't care. So
Mm,
when they hear of state corruption and people stealing money, I mean, like
mm,
look at Escom, look at SAA, look at all these
mm,
big state-owned enterprises that have just been
mm.
completely
The apathy
ransacked.
levels are yeah. Apathy
Everyone's
levels
just
are
like,
just
oh
through the
well,
roof.
oh well, oh well. That's Africa. That's it. Well, yeah. Well, that's what you know. That what do you expect? These people can't run a government. Do something.
Mm,
Vote. That's the simplest thing you can do is vote.
mm,
Go to the voting polls and vote.
mm,
But then even when voting comes along, and this is the interesting thing, this is how good the media has been at dividing the people and confusing them, is that they have managed to put so little faith in people. Sorry, I'm miswording here. Um, they have managed to make people have so little faith in the government that they won't even vote. They won't even vote. That's
mm,
how good the media is doing their job, because now no one. Oh, it's all rigged anyway. Why should I vote? Oh well, the ANC
mm,
is going to win. Why should I vote? It's so good
mm,
at doing that, and that's a big, big, big,
mm,
big problem in South Africa that we need to. I hope,
mm,
if anything, that this pandemic has done is made South Africans just open their eyes a little bit
mm,
more and realize, like, crap,
mm.
everything's falling apart. Literally, everything is falling apart, and we need to do something
Yeah.
about it. Do you want to say something,
Mm.
or can I go to this question?
Yeah, and I just kind of want to say on that, it's the ball is kind of in normal citizens' court like ours, right? Because we can't we're sitting with a nation where most people don't have a high school qualification. If you really look at it, like what the pass mark is, what the quality of people, sort of below 30 is in terms of just skill sets.
Mm,
You know, we're a very low developed nation in terms of skill sets, in terms of education, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So if we have any hope in hell of people electing people and holding them to account, we need to somehow ensure that we educate our nation.
mm, that's true.
And that should be as citizens, that should be our focus. Like, how do we take the man on the street and we make him smart? I
Yeah,
mean, like really, really smart. Like,
yeah,
how do we, and that's where I think it's that um, you go in there and you discussion and you challenge the narrative and you start asking rational questions. So you get into the debate, but in a healthy, friendly manner.
yeah,
So don't be afraid of the debate. If things start breaking down, back off, walk away. But we have to start somewhere.
absolutely. Um, just a question here. Why do our politicians only come off with a smack on the wrist when being implicated in major transgressions and failing in their duties to serve us? That's from Mr. Fasan. Great question. Look, again, because they rub shoulders with some of the most powerful people in office. They have a lot of people in their pockets. Look at Zuma. I don't think. And actually, I was speaking to a former colonel of USA who does a lot of interaction with Africa, or at least did in his career. He was a part of the NC. He worked with the NSA. He did a lot of trade deals with, or was overseeing a lot of trade deals with Africa. So he had a very. He's spent a lot of time in Africa and dealing with countries and stuff like that. And even he said, you will never see a like a Zuma go to jail. You will never see it. They just have they'll get a slap in the wrist or whatever, but that it won't happen because they just have too much power, too much money. They'll drag it on for as long as they can, and yeah, he was like, I don't think Zuma's going to go to jail. He probably will get something. Something will happen to him. He will probably go to trial, but beyond it, he said he doesn't think he's going to go to jail for whatever reason. And
Yeah,
I think it's just because the judges are in his pocket. Whoever's in his pocket, that's just how it is.
yeah,
Corruption. I don't
yeah.
know.
You need someone arguably that have the ability to go into the executive office and restructure the entire thing top down, so that
Mm,
basically that the man at the top is really just the administrator for the people at the top, so that there's transparency all the way through. And the only place where you really sort of prevent people from seeing complete transparency is in your military kind of orientated thing, when it comes to your safety and protection of your nation. For the rest of it, your import, your export, your legislation, all of that kind of stuff, it should all be transparent, should all be clear, it should all be audited, should, be using blockchain type technology, where and not that these things are perfect, right? But at least it's better than what we have, and we've we've uncovered some things this past week, which is quite alarming. With just and no hacking done, just browsing on some of the South African certain health institutes websites, clicking some links, finding some documents, being able to log into places that we really shouldn't be able to go to with guest logins, with guest user logins. And this just speaks clearly to the ineptitude of the government.
mm, yeah.
You know, whether it's a problem, we're not sure yet. It could be that a lot of this is just mock information, but it looks like it's real. And this is like patient data, with HIV and that. This is serious stuff.
Yeah.
So I have no faith in the government, none.
No one does.
I
No,
just don't.
no one does. I think,
And that's the problem.
yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah. I think for the majority of South Africans right now, and when I say majority, I don't mean like the blacks. I mean every single South African, whether you're white, black, Indian, whatever. I think most of us don't have faith in this government. There are people out there that have been promised things since 1994, and they're still waiting for whatever it is that they've been promised. And it's ANC is being shown its true colors during this time, and I hope that even if you're not, maybe like you said, the problem is education and stuff like that. But even if that's not like, even if you don't need to be in school to see what is happening around you. And I think, again, looking at the statistics from the last voting, if only 10% of the population, so that's 6 million people that voted, roundabout. Of that 6 million, I heard recently from someone who knows economics that 5 million people in South Africa are the middle class. That's 5 million. If you got an extra 2 million, just two, that's not even half of your population, to vote, you could swing that vote. That's the scary thing about it. Um, if 7 million or 6 million voted for whatever other party, DA, ZACP, COPE, whatever you are, um, voted for another completely different thing, because apparently while 6 million people voted, it was a 57% that was won by the ANC. So there's a 7%. That is a very very
Mm.
small amount.
Margin.
Yeah, margin to overcome.
Mm.
7% is not a
Mm.
big landslide. That's super super close in the grand
Mm.
scheme of things, especially when you start talking about
Mm.
6 million people that voted. So imagine that the whole country voted.
Mm.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, there is a bit of education with it, but I think that right
Mm.
now, with what is happening, I think a lot more people are waking up. As we mentioned before, a lot more people are noticing
Yeah.
the fails of this
Yeah.
government, and I hope that because I've seen it on social media. Everyone is talking about like that's it. In 2024, I'm gonna vote. I don't care. This is ridiculous. I'm sick and tired of the ANC. I've seen it a few times, and I think that's the best thing
Yeah.
we can do. In closing, what's your
Yeah.
opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a weird place, right? Because we're supposedly a democracy, but we're not really. Um,
Or
and
social democracy, I think maybe. I don't know.
yeah, I was actually doing. I was reading up on this. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, but this is an interesting thing, right? Looking up on where has socialism actually ever worked? You know, where
Hasn't.
did you ever have this? And someone made the argument, and it hasn't. And someone made the argument the only place that it's ever worked was apparently the Seychelles, where this guy became I can't remember his name, but he became like a benevolent dictator, um, and basically his what he put in place was a mass education program. So there was only one party. He rooted out any of his opponents. But after a couple of years, once the education levels had reached something like 90%, he then stepped over, established a two-party system, and then sort of made it a proper democracy again. You know,
That's
so
interesting.
that's you know yeah, and they went from sort of like this dictatorship, socialist state, slowly migrating over to a democracy and opening up the economy and that kind of stuff. So where
That's
they had
amazing.
very low education levels, so he basically didn't allow democracy to happen,
Mm.
and said, okay, I'm going to manage this until the people are at a certain level, and then allow democracy to come back in. Now that's an interesting debate, to say,
Yeah.
is that right? Is that wrong? Is that for the people's own good? But what is good? What is right? What is wrong?
But why
Should
would he
people
do
be
that
left
in
to
the
their own
first
devices?
place? Why would he do that in the first place? That's my
Uh,
question. Why would you start as a socialist country? Because usually socialism leads to communism. So,
yeah. So it, it was basically it's one of these small island nations where there isn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of infrastructure, there wasn't a lot of knowledge, not a lot of skill sets, so you're basically starting with very little. So it's this I think it's this idea of when you're dealing with people that are they're adults in age, but in terms of mental and what we call IQ and EQ, they're arguably lower down the rung. So they may be at the level of a 17-year-old or 16-year-old, even though they may be 30, 40 years old. So they don't necessarily have the skill set. So do you give them the ability to make life-changing decisions for others? And this is where the whole debate about democracy is actually a little bit flawed when you don't have an educated population. Because if you don't have an educated population, it's very easy to control your population through what we're seeing now.
yes.
It's just populist type propaganda stuff, right? So it's very easy to manipulate them, right?
Yes.
And they don't know it. They're completely unaware, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
So how do you change that? It's I think in South Africa, because we're a very big nation, it's an exceptionally complex problem, but it would be an interesting one to try and solve, though. But I do think our key ultimately lies in education, and but it's going to have to be a citizens, groundwork kind of thing, because it's in the government's interest to keep the people uneducated.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw it in Egypt. When I was living there, how the government also used poverty and keeping their people in
Mm,
poverty to basically
mm,
manipulate everyone. But okay, so we've gone just over the hour. I'm gonna cut it there. We got some really awesome
mm.
questions from everyone that was listening. Thank you so much, Cloud Sounds, Storm Legacy, Mr. Fasan. You guys were awesome. I see you guys commenting with you. They're even having a discussion in the chats, which is great. We
Mm.
like that.
That's cool,
And
though.
yeah, that's very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and also asking questions. It keeps the conversation going. Um, So Vera and I have decided to do a weekly kind of recap on news, but we're going to give you the real news as much as we can. As I've mentioned before, Vera is very informative, or what's the word I'm looking for? You're very knowledgeable.
I'm a geek. I'm a geek. I'm a geek. I'm a dork. I'm an IT guy.
Yeah.
I'm a software engineer that I don't sleep a lot. I like data. I like a lot of information.
Yeah. So you
So y I'm a whack job. I'm a little unstable, but in
no,
a fun way.
yeah. So he analyzes data basically, and
Mm,
spends a lot of time looking at the news and current events and stuff like that, and has a very open mind, which is why I enjoy talking to him. And yeah, liberal through and through, true liberal, not socialist. And like I said, I enjoy talking to him. So we're going to talk about weekly stuff, or stuff that has happened in the past week that we feel, like we did in this episode, basically just talking about the current things that have happened, what we think about them, and trying to give an opinion of how
mm.
people should
It's just an
maybe,
opinion.
yeah, how people should maybe look at this from a different point of view. And again,
Mm,
Venner and I've always said this from the beginning when we started doing the show. We want to present to you the information, and then it's up to you to Google and find out for yourself
mm,
what you think
mm.
is right or wrong, or where you
Yeah,
should allegiance should be, or to make an opinion
mm,
of the information on your own.
yeah,
So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to
yeah.
present some topics. We're going to present some news that
Mm,
happened in the past week, and we'll discuss it. You guys can ask us questions and give our
yeah.
opinions, and we'll have some fun with it at the same time. So that's what we're going to do from here on out. We'll probably call it the Let's Talk Weekly. I think that's a cool name.
Mm.
And yeah, we'll see you on Wednesday, and we'll talk about what's happened in the past week. So yeah, Venners, anything else you want to say?
No, I just want to say thank you again, everyone who watched and those who may be watching in the future. Please leave comments, subscribe to Joe's channel, like, share it with people. The only way that we get more people to share ideas or debate with us is by just having people engage and listen. So, and also maybe give us some feedback. If you think it's too long, you maybe want to make it shorter or keep it to the point, or maybe add slides, or so but again, be realistic. I have a day job. Maybe Joe, he can do a little bit of graphics here and there, but he also needs to make some bucks. So we're just doing this more just from an informative kind of sharing kind of this, but also want to keep it entertaining.
Yeah.
There's nothing as boring as just listening to two guys just like without any kind of like
Yeah, we'll
actually
obviously make it
entertainment.
fun. Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, cool.
Cool.
So
Other than that, thanks again for having me, Joe. It was good as usual.
yeah,
And to everyone watching, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.
absolutely. They asked someone in the comments asked for your Twitter handle. I commented and dropped your Twitter handle in the live chat. So uh, do follow Venner on Twitter. He always tweets some interesting stuff. So yeah, without further, what's wrong with me? With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you at the next one. I have a show tomorrow night with magician Russell Fox, who will be on the show. That's for my sit down and lockdown, where I speak to performers and we just have a good chat in a nice, fun, entertaining environment. We don't talk about politics. I get to know the performer behind the microphone, basically. Friday, I have a roast, which is always a lot of fun with fellow comedians as well. And then I'll be back from next week onwards. You can again subscribe and get all the details of my upcoming shows. But as for Let's Talk, we'll see you next week. So cheers, have a good week. And if I don't see you at the next one, stay safe. Cheers.